Welcome back to County Connection. For this next segment, we're going to talk about all the projects that Summit County Road and Bridge has on tap this summer, 2018. And here to tell us all about it is Tom Gozrowski, our Public Works Director. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, Julie. Thanks.
So summertime is a busy time for Summit County Road and Bridge. Can you talk about the window in which our folks have to operate on these types of projects?
Yeah, summer is short but sweet here, and so that gives us a very narrow window to do road projects. Typically, we try to start doing road maintenance around the 1st of May, and we want to be wrapped up with all planned projects by early October. The last several years we've had really nice autumns and we've been able to push that a little bit deeper, but we can't always count on that, so we try not to schedule too much after the 1st of October and use what time we get, what time Mother Nature gives us in the autumn to kind of do smaller touch-up work on roads at that time of the year. So really just several months in the midst of the summer when we can do significant road work.
Right, and in addition to the time constraints, Mother Nature poses some extra challenges in this environment. So what are our roads up against in a climate like ours?
So the biggest thing we deal with, primarily on asphalt roads, but it affects our gravel roads as well, is freeze-thaw cycles. As we all know, we go through big temperature swings in Summit County. In the summertime, it's very normal to have temperature swings of 45 or 50 degrees between nighttime lows and daytime highs. And the same is true in the winter. And that freeze-thaw cycle is really tough on pavements and leads to a lot of potholing and weather-related cracking of pavements. And then what we see in the spring and the fall when we have maybe more moisture is that the moisture is tough on our gravel roads and leads to a lot of rutting and washboarding on gravel roads. So this is a tough environment for roadway maintenance for sure.
Yeah. So in terms of the kind of big ticket projects that you have on tap or underway, one of them is another phase of the Summit Cove Loop project. So what's the Summit Cove Loop project?
So that's right. This is the third phase of our Summit Cove Loop project. And this has been a project that's been going on for several years. The primary purpose was to add shoulders for bicyclists and pedestrians in that neighborhood. There really isn't much in the way of separated pathways in the Summit Cove neighborhood, or sidewalks for that matter, and so we were trying to create a more usable and safe environment for all users of the roads, not just cars. And as I said, it started several years ago. This third phase is going to begin at Whispering Pines Ranch Road, which is where we stopped last summer, and it's going to go out towards the entrance of Summit Cove about halfway, and so that's about to the Soda Creek condominiums. And very similar to what folks have seen in the past several years. This one's a little tougher in that there's a segment of road there that we call the causeway, where we cross an open space area, and it's very narrow, and so we need to widen that out, and that involves building a fairly substantial retaining wall there. We're also going to do some maintenance work on the culverts that carry the creek underneath that road at the same time. So a lot of the work this year is related to just building that wall and creating more space so that we can build a wider road. But once that's complete, we'll of course be widening the road out and repaving it as well.
And that was something that we got a lot of feedback on during our initial public process when we kind of floated the idea of the Summit Cove Loop project, that people told us that they felt or pedestrians and bicyclists were telling us they felt like there just wasn't really enough cushion on that causeway.
Yeah, those roads were narrower than many people felt comfortable with, and particularly on the causeway section where there is guardrail on both sides of the road, and so if you're on a bike, it could kind of feel like you were trapped between those guardrails and automobiles, and was not a very comfortable feeling, particularly for residents that had children on bikes with them. It's kind of a scary place, and so it's going to be a much nicer environment for those users when we get this complete. Yeah.
Excellent. And so what's the rough time frame that we're thinking for this project?
Yeah, so that project is kicking off this week. Mostly what people will see this week is kind of mobilization, which means that a contractor is moving equipment in and doing a lot of preparation for the heavier work. And so we're starting off right now, and it's going to continue through about mid-October. So right up through the end of what we think is our normal summer road construction season.
Okay, and so we associated with some of that more intense work, people can expect some single lane closures, even some double lane closures at various points.
Yeah, for sure. As is often the case with road projects, there will be some traffic delays. People can often expect single lane closures with flaggers, and so we ask everybody to be aware and pay attention to that and look for those flaggers. And there will be a period of time when we're building that retaining wall I mentioned that the road will be fully closed. And we'll have detours posted, and there'll be a lot of notice to the residents in that neighborhood before the full closure begins. But in order to build that wall, we do need to close the road completely.
All right, sounds good. And then we'll look forward to October-ish, then when we have that brand new section complete.
Yep, it'll be nice. And then I think the real exciting news is that we plan to complete the last phase of that project next year in 2019. And so it's going to be really a good feeling and good for the neighborhood to have that fully completed next summer.
All right, fantastic. Yeah. So what else do we have on tap? We're not just going to be in Summit Cove, we'll be in some other spots as well.
We are always kind of everywhere in the county doing a lot of routine maintenance projects, but in terms of bigger, more impactful and more expensive projects, there's two others I'd like to mention. And the first is we're going to do a chip sealing project on Swan Mountain Road, on the east side of Swan Mountain Road. So that'll begin at US Highway 6 near Summit Cove and go to Sapphire Point, kind of at the summit of Swan Mountain there. And that's about 2.5 miles, so it's a pretty lengthy project. The good news about chip seal projects are they go fast. So we're anticipating
a lot faster than a kind of traditional pavement.
A lot faster than a full repavement. So this will take about 4 working days.
Okay.
We are going to close the road at that time, and because of that, we're not going to begin that work until September after Labor Day, when some of our traffic volumes start to die down and we don't have so many visitors here. There'll be a lot of public notice before that begins, but we can do it really quick. And that project is really going to help us to preserve the asphalt on that road and help us to avoid more expensive and more time-consuming projects in the future. So a good way to kind of have a few days of pain and suffering as we do that, but add a lot of lifespan to that roadway.
Okay, excellent.
But that's definitely one people will want to watch for, because Swan's a pretty heavily traveled road, well-used road, and that's why we want to give the public a lot of notice before that begins.
Okay, great. Yeah. So we do get some questions, speaking of cyclists, about chip seal. So how does that work out for cyclists? What should they be kind of aware of?
So we are taking some extra steps to make sure that that chip seal is as cyclist friendly as we can make it. Having been an avid road cyclist myself for much of my life, I've ridden on a lot of chip seal, both good and bad, and kind of had that firsthand experience of what makes a good bicycling chip seal and what makes a bad one. And what we start with is using a little smaller size of chips, so that it's not as rough. And in fact, the finished surface in terms of smoothness would be very comparable to a new asphalt surface.
Oh, wow.
So pretty smooth. And then the next step we take is that we do a lot of sweeping. And people may have traveled in more rural areas where they see chip seal projects that don't do a lot of sweeping, and they find lots of loose stone chips and on corners or at curves, piles of stone chips. So one of the things that we do a little bit extra is make sure that we sweep all of that off of the roadway, not leave any of that behind really. And then we apply an asphalt sealant over the top that's known as a fog seal. It's somewhat similar to a seal coat that people would put on their driveways, but it helps to seal down all the chips and ensure that there's no loose material. It also gives the roadway a really nice, shiny, new black surface to it. So by taking those steps, using smaller chips and really good sweeping, we can create a road surface that cyclists really won't notice a whole lot of difference between the existing asphalt surface and what we leave behind when the project's complete.
All right, fantastic. So let's see, headed up to the, or I should say down.
Yeah, to the
well,
south.
Up in elevation, down in geography. So the southern side of the county, we've got a project going on there as well.
Yeah, one of our other big repaving projects for this summer is on Boreas Pass Road. And this is a little bit higher up on Boreas Pass, still on the paved portion, but just downhill of Bunker Hill Lane, if people know where that is. And the residents in that area will be familiar that we did a repave project on a segment last summer as well. And this year's project is just a continuation of that. So
Okay.
we're going to do about another 2,300 feet of repaving. That road, the surface is in pretty rough condition, and so we're trying, as our funding allows, to get that resurfaced and get it in new condition. And one of the things that we're trying to do there as well is to add some width, again, for cyclists and pedestrians. That can be pretty narrow, and speeds can be high, particularly coming downhill.
Okay.
So we're adding on a few extra feet of width on each side to give some shoulder area for those other road users and allow the traffic to pass more safely. So pretty good project for that area as well.
Excellent. So Tom, if people have questions about these projects, where can they get the most current information?
Yeah, sure. So for the biggest project, the Summit Cove Loop project, we do have a blog that we update weekly about the ongoing construction there, and folks can find a link to that through the Summit County Road and Bridge webpage and the Summit County government website.
Great.
And also on the Road and Bridge webpage, we post project information about these other projects as well. So, and of course, anyone is welcome to call or email Road and Bridge with more specific questions. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, anything that you'd like to add about what Road and Bridge is up to this summer, or have we covered it all, you think?
It's been a busy summer, and with a lot of these repaving projects coming up, I'd just like to ask everyone watching to be patient and be cautious as you drive through those work zones. We're definitely trying to get the work completed as fast as we can and with as minimal impact on travelers and neighborhoods as possible, but we ask for everybody's cooperation with that.
All right. Well, good luck with all of the heavy lifting that there is to be done for the rest of this year, and we'll look forward to seeing those shiny new finished projects in the fall.
Yeah, thanks, Julie.
All right. And thanks to those of you at home who have joined us for another episode of County Connection. We'll look forward to seeing you next month.